Welcome, everyone. I'm very pleased to be joined today by Arun Venkataraman, Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Global Markets and Director General of the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service. Mr. Venkataraman, thank you very much for your time.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
So I understand that part of the reason for your visit to Armenia is to advance commercial ties between the United States and Armenia, including with regard to energy. To that end, Washington and Yerevan signed a memorandum of understanding last spring on civil nuclear cooperation. And just last month, the U.S. ambassador here, Christina Kavin, said the U.S. government is in talks now to consider funding that will further operationalize that memorandum of understanding. What else can you tell us about that?
Happy to do so, Mark. But before I do, let me just reiterate the United States government's strong commitment to the peace process between Armenia and Azerbaijan. We look forward to working with both parties to ensuring a peaceful resolution and ensuring the long-term economic prosperity of this region. So thank you. When we look at energy, Mark, we are incredibly pleased by the MOU that was signed last year because that really set a new stage of deepened collaboration on energy for Armenia and the United States. And in particular, with respect to civil nuclear cooperation, it really has launched a set of activities that deepen that collaboration. So for example, we are looking to promote exchanges between our experts so that we can share the experience the United States has had with nuclear power and then hear about what Armenia's needs are as they look ahead to develop further nuclear power in their country. I think what's important to note here is, of course, that when we're talking about energy, what we're really talking about is ensuring the energy security and long-term economic sovereignty of Armenia. And so as Armenia looks to expand its energy generation and its energy distribution, we are keen to make sure that American companies support that initiative. And so we are looking forward to continuing further exchanges between experts to build on that and to ensure that the government of Armenia has the information that it needs to determine its course of energy for the future.
And I also want to talk about trade. Of course, trade plays an important role here. Earlier this week, Armenia's economy minister, Vahan Kerobyan, met with some of your colleagues from the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, and they discussed steps to expand Armenia's exports, particularly high-tech exports to the United States. I'm curious, in your view, what are the existing barriers to trade, and what can be done to lower them?
Sure. I think what you'll find is when American businesses look to trade with foreign parties, what they're looking for is an environment in which they can trade and invest in a stable, predictable manner. And so that really requires open, transparent policies and processes, that requires a strong rule of law, that requires judicial independence, a lot of the elements that you would expect in a country with strong democratic institutions. And I'm proud to say that as we work with the Armenian government, we are deepening our collaboration in all of those areas, because as we deepen that collaboration, we know that that will attract more U.S. investment into Armenia and deepen our ties further.
I want to continue this conversation about trade a little bit, but in a different way. So in 2021, the U.S. International Trade Commission imposed anti-dumping duties on aluminum foil from Armenia and 4 other countries after determining that they were being sold at less than fair value. Prior to that, aluminum foil accounted for a substantial share of Armenia's annual exports to the United States. And as far as I'm aware, this is the first time that an Armenian export item came under U.S. government scrutiny in this manner. Has this issue been part of your discussions here in Yerevan?
So Mark, these are individual investigations that are conducted through quasi-judicial processes. So whenever I travel, as a general matter, I do not speak to those individual investigations because that would be inappropriate, and I did not do so here.
Sure, I understand. I'm also wondering, the Commerce Department currently designates Armenia as a non-market economy alongside a number of other former Soviet countries, as well as China and Vietnam. This may sound niche or obscure, but this designation actually can have some important ramifications for trade, including with regard to U.S. anti-dumping laws. So I was wondering, for our viewers who may not understand what exactly this means, can you explain this designation, and is removing this designation on the agenda?
Sure, Mark. What I would say is, without getting too technical, the non-market economy designation really is based on a set of objective criteria that are evaluated with respect to a particular market. And based on that conclusion, it determines what sorts of prices are used in the calculations that are made in anti-dumping investigations. While we have not, I'm not here to speak about any individual investigations again, I would just say that we have heard the views of the Armenian government with respect to that, and I will leave those conversations to a separate channel.
Sure. And finally, I'm wondering, you are here in Armenia, of course, but you have just come from Georgia, from Azerbaijan before that, from Turkey before that, if I remember correctly. And so can you just talk a little bit about what this region means for the Commerce Department and for the U.S. more broadly?
Absolutely. The U.S. Commerce Department, along with the whole of the U.S. government, is fully committed to this region. This region is an important, dynamic region that is nestled in a challenging geographic area that we all know. And our job as friends and partners of all of the countries in this region is to ensure that each of these countries maintains its independence, achieves its economic sovereignty and energy security in a way consistent with the objectives of each of the peoples of these countries. And that's what we are here to do. We know that, in our view, greater collaboration with the United States, and in particular with the United States private sector, will help each of these countries achieve those objectives. And I think that as we can achieve those objectives, we ensure the long-term economic prosperity for the peoples throughout this region. And we're keen for us to be a part of that conversation as a friend and ally of all of the countries in this region.
Well, Mr. Venkataraman, again, welcome to Armenia, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on CivilNet.